All right, everybody, are you ready to turn your stitch regulators off? It will be painless, I promise. I'm going to give you a few hints and tricks that should make your transition from stitch regulation into manual mode much easier. For those of you on older machines and you aren't running a stitch regulator at all, you're already there. But if you are a quilter, and especially if you've been quilting for a long time and you've never worked in manual mode, it can be a pretty scary thing to flip that switch and go that direction. It took me 6 years to turn my stitch regulator off, and I will admit the first time I did it, I was like, it was a little freaky because my machine was just set at whatever it was, 12 stitches per inch, and it just went, and I wasn't really sure what to do with myself. So I've got a couple of things I want to let you in on that should make it a lot easier and a lot smoother. First thing we want to understand is we as humans have a natural, comfortable gait. Some quilters are very slow and pokey, nothing wrong with that. Others are just clippers, moving along, Mario Andretti, down the quilt, across it. It doesn't matter what you're doing, big, small, you're just flying. And others are a lot slower. So the machine, being a machine, could care less what speed it's going in. We, as humans, care what speed we're going in, so we're going to make the machine match our natural gait. Everybody's is going to be different, and it's also going to be different for each of you as you move from, say, larger designs that are going all over a quilt to a smaller design in, say, a border or a sashing, and then a different cadence with your movement when you're doing filler work. So it's not like a one-size-fits-all deal. You will find your natural, what I call a sweet spot, with each of those as you get comfortable and you play around in manual mode. I know where mine are because I'm very comfortable and that's how I work, and I know sort of what speed I want for what type of quilting I'm doing. So we're going to play around. The stitch regulators, as awesome as they are, and I use them always when I'm doing stitch in the ditch work or any kind of ruler work, they do a really good job. But I find, for me personally, when I'm using a stitch regulator for freehand, the fact that the motor speeds up and slows down as I do, it's almost like it makes me want to move in that manner, like whoosh and then whoosh, as opposed to up, down. And it's a really hard thing to kind of describe. You really have to kind of just get into it and do it. But you know what I'm talking about. When you're in stitch regulation, it's like a shoom, shoom kind of thing. And you've got that minute, you can kind of hang out on a point if you need to, or you know, if you scooch really far down on another one, it doesn't matter, the machine keeps up. In manual mode, you've just got that one constant speed. It's just a nice, that's the technical term, another one of those. So what I've done, I'm in stitch regulated mode at the moment, and I'm just going to throw in some leaves and curls here. Everybody's used stitch regulation, so you know what that's going to feel like and what it's going to sound like. So if I'm doing my leaves, for me, having the machine doing that actually makes me want to move like that. So when you turn the regulators off and you've just got that constant speed, it will actually, your rhythm will get really smooth and just yummy. So what I want you to do, you're going to start, I suggest that I would rather you started slower than faster. When you're moving the machine, if you're moving it, you turn it on and you start going and you feel like you've got this like anxiety kind of, oh my gosh, I'm rushing, and you feel like you're being sort of pulled along, your stitches are really tiny, maybe your bobbin thread breaks. I'll explain that in a minute. The machine is just way too fast. You don't need to speed up your hands, you need to slow the machine down. Get it slower and you'll find your happy place. By the same token, if I turn my machine on and I start to stitch and my stitches are huge and the machine seems kind of sluggish and I feel like I'm shoving my machine through the fabric, clearly the motor is too slow and I'm a Speedy Gonzales, so I need to speed up the motor. I don't need to slow down. The machine has to match what I'm happy with. So, like I said, I've got sort of 3 different sort of speeds. There's no sense in me giving you my numbers because I stitch differently than you will. Everybody's different. So, I've popped that off. Just to show you, I'm going to start at 10, which with an APQS machine, 10 in a stitch regulated mode is 10 stitches per inch, and then the dial just turns into your speed control when you turn the regulator off. So I'm at 10 at the moment. That's pretty slow. My stitches are going to be huge. I'm actually going much slower than I normally move, but see how large they are? Way too big. So start slow, do a little bit, and kind of get the feel for it, and then now I'm going to turn the machine on and I'm going to move my speed as I stitch, and I'll hit my what I call my sweet spot. I'm going to hit it and you'll just feel it. It'll just feel comfortable and everything will seem nice and smooth all of a sudden. So I'll start again. Did you hear it? Did you hear it sort of speed up and then it just sort of, I felt it, I love it. It's about up to a 12, which still isn't monster fast, but I'm stitching fairly small motifs. If I was quilting it all over and I was stitching my leaves this big, my hands are moving faster, so my machine needs to be faster to keep up with me. This is a really nice speed for me here, and if I'm going to be doing filler work, this is probably just a little bit too quick. So when you start in manual mode, as you take off, unlike in stitch regulation, in stitch regulator mode, we can turn the machine on and just like hang out there for half an hour if we want, because nothing's going to happen until we move the machine. In manual, as soon as you hit that button, the machine starts to stitch. So you have to be ready when you hit the button to go. By the same token, when you come in to stop, when you're in manual mode, you can't just kind of come around and stop the machine and hang out there and then hit the button. The machine needle will keep firing and chances are it's going to actually break your bobbin thread. So if you're finding when you first start in manual mode that your bobbin thread's breaking a lot, you're either hovering in a spot, you're not moving your machine sort of quick enough and the needle's firing too much in the same area and it will actually cut your bobbin thread. The same thing when you come into stop. If you come into stop and you just sit there for a second until you turn it off, it will cut the bobbin thread. So we're going to hit the button and leave. I don't mean hit the button and shove the machine away from you and create this huge massive stitch and heaven forbid break a needle. That happened to me once at a show. Goodness. That's a story for another day. So when you hit the button in manual mode, you're going to hit the on button and you just want to be prepared to go. When I'm ready to stop, I'm going to hit the button and slide into home plate at the same time. they're both kind of together. You'll get the hang of it really quickly. It won't take too many times if you're bobbin thread breaking for you to get the hang of that. So those are two important things that I want you to remember. Now, if I do something really small, say we're doing pebbles, I actually need my machine a little bit slower, because if I try to do pebbles in a speed like this, I'm in such a small area. Good night, that's fast. Okay, so for a little tiny design like that, that speed, way too fast. I've probably got 40 stitches per inch in those little circles, and they look awful. It doesn't look nice at all. And heaven forbid you should have to actually take that out. It's going to be a nightmare, and you won't be happy. So for small filler-like stuff, I'm going to slow my machine down a fair amount, maybe back to a 10. Much better. So, as I say, different applications, you will have different speeds, but once you've mucked around in there for a little bit and you found all your sweet spots and all your happy places, honestly, manual mode is absolutely fantastic and you will love it. I promise you. So try it. I want everybody to take your stitch regulators off. We're going to have a discussion in the classroom. Post pictures, post questions. We'll talk about it again. And if there's anything I've left out, we can certainly discuss that in the class. But I really think that once you've tried it, you'll absolutely love it. All right, off you go. Turn your stitch regulators off and play.